With the release of Dragon Ball Z: Legacy of Goku, fans of Dragon Ball were left mostly disappointed, and the game received some very negative critical reception. Nonetheless, the game as of today has sold over 1 million copies, and a year after initial release, a sequel, Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku 2, was on store shelves. And let me tell you, this game improved upon its predecessor in every way imaginable. Faster gameplay, check. Multiple playable characters, check. Absolutely kick-ass music, check. And almost accurate to the anime story, check. Fucking iconic lines from the show, check. From when I got this game right when it came out to now, having played through it many times, I can confidently say that it is the best Dragon Ball game ever made, but that doesn't leave it without flaws. This game is far from perfect, and its problems will be discussed in a matter of minutes, but right now let's discuss that plot. The story for Legacy of Goku 2 follows that of the androids and cell arcs, in a pretty faithful way to the anime. If you're already familiar with the plot of Dragon Ball Z, feel free to skip to the timestamp below to get to the actual review. Otherwise, enjoy my summarized version of another summary. The intro for the game, and also part of the tutorial, begins with you 20 years in the future in the shoes of future Trunks, during the events of History of Trunks movie, where the world has been destroyed and taken over by androids 17 and 18. Trunks and his best friend / master Gohan are trying to teach the former how to achieve Super Saiyan form in order to gain the edge against the androids, but ultimately fail, leaving Trunks increasingly frustrated. The androids begin wreaking havoc nearby, leaving Gohan and Trunks ready to fight. Gohan surprisingly knocks Trunks unconscious, knowing that he isn't ready to face the androids, and leaves to fight them alone. Trunks awakens to find Gohan face down in a puddle, dead. This sends him over the edge, and he finally becomes a Super Saiyan. Rewind to the past, where it's been a year since Goku had battled Frieza, and Gohan is living a normal life as a student. After an interesting dream sequence involving a boss fight with Frieza, Gohan awakens, feeling Frieza's energy, his dream seemingly being an unconscious premonition. Turns out that Gohan wasn't the only one to feel this energy, as Krillin calls and tells Gohan to meet him and the other Z fighters. At this point, we are presented with already different game mechanics than the game's predecessor. First, we have the save point. Instead of simply pausing and selecting a save option, you can only save your game and in the future change characters here. So expect to get pretty fucking frustrated when you have to restart an entire section of the game since you forgot to save or didn't make it to the next save point. Up next is the level barrier. These are pretty simple to explain, as they just display the level that you need to be in order to pass them, with a lot of them involving some serious grinding to get through. On top of this, other barriers are color-coded, with these colors corresponding to a certain playable character. After passing this barrier, Gohan retrieves his old Saiyan battle armor from the planet Namek and heads to the location where he was told to be at. Here we are thrown into a pretty impressive overworld type area in which we fly across Earth to get to our destination. You'll be spending a lot of time here, as it's the only way to travel between areas. This really created a good sense of immersion for me, no matter how shit the actual in-game map looks. Dragon Ball involves a lot of high-speed flying around, so to actually be able to reenact this is pretty awesome. After reuniting with everyone, all of the Z Fighters' worst expectations happen, and Frieza arrives on Earth with his father, King Cold. Before he can enact his revenge, Frieza and even his father are quickly destroyed by none other than Trunks, who now has control over Super Saiyan form. This had left everyone shocked, as the only known Super Saiyan at the time was Goku, and nobody knew who this mystery person was. Trunks makes his way to where everyone else is and lets them know that Goku is about to arrive on Earth as well, and tells the Z Fighters to follow him to the landing site. While suspicious of the Super Saiyan stranger, everyone follows suit, and as Trunks stated, Goku arrives at the exact location. Trunks speaks to Goku in private, telling him that he comes from the future as the son of Bulma and Vegeta, and warns Goku that in 3 years' time, 2 androids will begin destroying the Earth, and that he will die of a heart virus before he even gets to fight them. In order to change history for the better, Trunks gives Goku the antidote to the virus and leaves. After a little bit of filler, such as getting a sandwich for the good old Mr. Satan, saving some stranded children, beating the fuck out of a Triceratops, and running into Frieza's brother Cooler of all people, the 3 long years of training begin. Fast forward 3 years, Goku and the Z Fighters gather at the location that Trunks said the androids would appear. A few hours ahead of schedule, the androids do indeed arrive and begin destroying the city. Goku manages to talk them into following him to a location without civilians so they could fight peacefully. Meanwhile, Vegeta's in the reaches of space and finally becomes a Super Saiyan and makes his way back to Earth. Goku and the rotund android 19 engage in a short-lived battle, ending with Goku falling victim to the heart virus as predicted. But before 19 can finish him off, Vegeta arrives and makes quick work of the androids while using his new Super Saiyan form. In a panic, Android 20, now revealed to be Dr. Gero, a member of the Red Ribbon Army that Goku had seemingly destroyed as a child, panics and retreats to his laboratory hidden in the mountains. After some more fillers, such as shutting off some dickhead's power and moving some eggs, the gang reaches Dr. Gero's lab, where he'd already activated androids 17 and 18, who immediately destroy him and activate yet another android, number 16. With Gero out of the way, the androids are now free to do whatever they please, and they embark on their first mission, to kill Goku. The Z Fighters manage to catch up to them, but the androids defeat all of them with ease. Now desperate for a way to be strong enough to face the androids, Piccolo seeks to fuse with his other half, Kami. Before deciding to fuse with Piccolo, Kami tells him that there is a being that is even more powerful and evil than the androids that needs their immediate attention, and the two fuse. At the same time, it is revealed that there is a time machine identical to the one that Trunks used located in Ginger Town. After investigating said time machine, Trunks discovers that it had been there for 4 years, and had been used by some strange bug-like creature. Upon fusing with Kami, Piccolo arrives at Ginger Town, where there are reports of the entire town vanishing, the being that Kami had warned him about seeming to be the one responsible. Piccolo runs into the culprit, a strange creature that seems to know all about him, and the two fight. The creature reveals himself to be named Cell, and that he's an android created by Dr. Gero that is made up of cells from the greatest fighters in the universe, such as Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, and Piccolo himself. Along with spilling the beans that he had come from the future and his present self was still being created in a secret room underneath Dr. Gero's lab. Cell elaborates that his reasoning behind traveling to the past was so that he could absorb androids 17 and 18 and become a perfect being, as that was their intended purpose, but Trunks had already destroyed them in their timeline. So Cell killed Trunks and stole his time machine. After being informed of this, Trunks manages to make his way back to Dr. Gero's lab and disposes of the present-day Cell. Back on Master Roshi's island, Goku has recovered from the heart virus and decided that in order to be able to face Cell, everyone needs a year of training. The only way to get said training is to go into the hyperbolic time chamber, as a year in there is only a day in real time. Goku sends Vegeta and Trunks in to train first, with him and Gohan going next. Piccolo returns to Master Roshi's island, knowing that the androids will be arriving there in search of Goku. To their surprise, the androids are only met by Piccolo, who challenges them to a battle nearby. 17 steps up and he and Piccolo fight until Cell manages to track them all down. Despite his best efforts to escape, 17 is absorbed, causing Cell to transform into a much more powerful semi-perfect state. Cell makes quick work of Piccolo but is held back from absorbing 18 by the valiant Tien, who allows 18 and 16 to escape. Only able to hold Cell for a short time, Tien collapses and before Cell is able to finish Tien and Piccolo off, Goku arrives to save the two. A day has passed, and Trunks and Vegeta finally emerge from the hyperbolic time chamber, in much better shape and more powerful than ever before. As the father and son leave to confront Cell, Goku and Gohan finally enter the chamber themselves. Trunks and Vegeta manage to track down Cell, and Vegeta uses a newer yet slower Super Saiyan form to easily defeat him. Cell manages to appeal to Vegeta's lust for a challenging fight, and convinces Vegeta to allow him to absorb the nearby android 18. With 18 absorbed, Cell evolves into his final, perfect form and smacks the shit out of Vegeta. Trunks arrives to save the day, but learns that his efforts are futile and that Cell is way too powerful. After Trunks tells Cell that Goku is training to fight him, Cell decides that he will hold a tournament 10 days from then to decide the fate of the Earth, in preparation for what would be called the Cell Games. The Z Fighters obtain the 7 Dragon Balls to wish back all of those killed at the hands of Cell. Fast forward to the day of the tournament, and the Z Fighters have gathered at Cell's arena along with Mr. Satan as well. Thinking of it as a regular, legitimate fighting tournament, Mr. Satan attempts to fight Cell first and is smacked off the screen. Goku was the first to actually fight Cell, but quits the fight partway through, saying that he isn't strong enough to defeat Cell, and that the now Super Saiyan Gohan is the only one who will defeat him. Cell and Gohan fight, but Gohan fails to do any damage to Cell. A now friendly android 16 has had enough and decides to use his self-destruct feature to destroy Cell, but to his surprise, the explosive inside of his body had been removed, and 16 is destroyed by Cell. Cell begins to toy with Gohan in order to awaken his hidden power by spawning miniature versions of himself. As the Z Fighters are fighting the Cell Juniors, Mr. Satan becomes alarmed when the still functioning disembodied head of 16 asks Mr. Satan to bring him to Gohan. Once 16 is next to Gohan, he tells the young boy to drop his restraints and kick the shit out of Cell, who funny enough is standing right there and decides to destroy the head, sending Gohan over the edge and into Super Saiyan 2, or as this game says, Super Saiyan Rage. Gohan kicks Cell's ass so hard that he pukes up 18 and reverts to his previous semi-perfect form. Now desperate, Cell becomes massive and plans to self-destruct and destroy the Earth, but Goku manages to transport him and Cell to King Kai's planet Otherworld, killing himself, King Kai, and seemingly Cell in the process. As everyone begins to mourn over Goku, Trunks is struck by an energy blast and is killed. Cell then reappears, now stronger than ever, and begins to battle Gohan again. With the outside help from Vegeta and company, along with some encouragement from Goku, Gohan finally brings an end to Cell. Everyone leaves and Mr. Satan decides to take credit for the whole thing. Back on the lookout, the Z Fighters use the Dragon Balls to wish all of those killed by Cell back to life, including Trunks, and attempt to use their second wish to revive Goku. Since Goku has already died and been revived by the Dragon Balls before, this wouldn't work. Goku says that it would be best for him to remain in Otherworld anyway, since most of the time bad people only come to Earth to fight him. So instead, Krillin uses the wish to remove the bomb from Android 18 in an attempt to woo her. Everybody goes their separate ways, and just as we began, we end the game as Gohan, who is now home to break the news of Goku's death to his mother. While there are a little bit of inaccuracies littered throughout the story, none of them were super major or really worth mentioning. I see them as just the game developers making the game more playable. For example, in the show, Gohan takes out all the Cell Juniors, but in the game, each character gets to go at them so we can have sort of a final boss fight for each of them. All of the quests unrelated to the show can be treated as this game's form of filler, which isn't a bad thing, but doesn't feel necessary. If you've made it this far, or if you just skipped the synopsis section, it's time to talk about the game itself after 15 hours of playing. Similar to its predecessor, Legacy of Goku 2 is played in a top-down perspective, but now in a much faster type of gameplay. You can now walk in 8 directions, even double tap a directional button to full-on sprint. This makes getting around some of the larger areas a lot easier, but expect to constantly run into shit that appears on screen at the last second. Combat is similar to, yet a lot faster than the first games. You still have your punches, kicks, energy blasts, and special attacks. As you spend more time playing though, you'll really wish that there was a block button because most of the enemies will not hesitate to constantly beat the shit out of you. I'm talking not being able to move because you're getting whooped so bad. And when a large group of enemies start to gank you, might I add that this is going to happen quite a lot, so you're going to die a good bit. But what's new is each character's unique charge melee attacks and forms. The charged attacks range from a spinning punch to a leaping sword slash. Goku, Trunks, Gohan, and Vegeta all have their Super Saiyan forms, with Piccolo having a Super Namek form. Forms increase your speed and attack power, but drain your ki meter, which acts as a sort of timer. Performing ki attacks and special abilities causes the meter to drain even faster, so be cautious. To prevent this, you can pick up these little energy balls to restore your ki. And while I'm on the subject, when your health is low, you can eat some food off of the ground, which can be obtained by breaking shit like rocks or some jars, along with energy balls. Restoratives being used upon picking them up is a nice alternative to opening up your inventory and finding them, which further shows how much faster this game is compared to its predecessor. And honestly, another thing that's faster would be the game's enemies. These guys move just as fast as you do, and there's a pretty decent variety of them. But it can get pretty ridiculous when you start seeing stronger, just recolors of enemies instead of different ones. Same goes for most of the bosses that aren't important characters as well. The RPG elements in this game are also a lot more prevalent. We still gain experience points from defeating enemies, but we also have some stats that improve each time we level up. Although we don't really get the option to choose which stat we can improve more than the others, and the amount of each stat increases is random. There are these little capsule pickups that can increase a certain stat by a specific amount, but there are only a certain number of them in the game, so use them wisely on whoever you want. I personally use every single one of them on Gohan since we started the game with him, and if you're aware of the story, you'll know that you're going to face the final boss with him. Earlier I mentioned that there are character-specific level gates that you need to pass through to progress the game. Getting a character to the intended level isn't hard at all. Yeah, it can get a little grindy, but since enemies respawn each time you leave the screen and come back, you'll be ready in no time. One thing you need to be aware of is your other characters' levels too. You will struggle a good bit with tougher enemies, especially in the late game areas if you don't keep all of your characters leveled up. I'd recommend that every character should be within at least 5 levels below your highest level character, and not to mention that each character will have some pretty high leveled gates, with the optional ones needing you to be at max level, which is 50, so don't be unprepared for the grind. The game operates on a quest system. In your pause menu is a log of all the quests that are in progress and ones that you've already completed. Now, don't expect a ton of variety with these. The main story quests just involve a lot of fighting and making it to the end of an area with a boss fight or two thrown in, and every single side quest just a fetch quest. The worst of these being a hunt for 25 golden capsules hidden throughout the world. Funny enough, a few of the fetch quests in the game reward you with some of these golden capsules for completing them. The payoff for collecting these capsules isn't even worth it in the end, as all you're given for your troubles is one of the golden bastards to keep that just allows you to enter the world map from wherever you currently are instead of having to backtrack all the way to one of these map things. I'd honestly rather bring Hercules open club face sandwich or gather all 7 of these Namekian guys. The Namekian quest is actually pretty damn cool, as it ties into Cooler's appearance during the story. Once you gather all the Namekians, you're able to go with them to their home planet, New Namek, the old one having been destroyed by Frieza when fighting Goku. And once you're there, you'll find Cooler waiting for you in this cave. This will be way later in the game, and Cooler will be pretty strong, but it's a decent boss fight nonetheless. When you meet him, he asks to fight Goku, but it doesn't really matter who fights him, as the only thing different are some lines of dialogue. But the shittiest quest of all has to be the fucking egg transporting one. When trying to get to Dr. Zero's lab, you need to make this bitch of a dinosaur move so you can destroy a generator that she just so happens to be nesting at. But in order for her to move, she makes you carry her eggs somewhere else. When carrying an egg, you can't attack at all. so you need to avoid any enemy in your way. One thing that this quest exposes about the game is the bullshit hitboxes. The range that these enemies' attacks have is ridiculous. One way to make this go by faster though is to use Vegeta's Super Saiyan form if you're playing as him. Whenever I finally got that first egg to where it needed to be, I can't describe the relief I felt, which was followed by immediate anger upon realizing that there were 2 more. Contrary to that shitfest, my favorite quest would have to be this really short one in the Council Corporation that involves uncovering a plot by an employee who secretly works for a rival company and is trying to steal research. I feel like Gohan was a cool little detective here, and it was nice to lock that bastard up after exposing him. Even though none of it is marked as main quests, there is some post-game content. Not very great post-game content, but it's there. Throughout the game, you'll notice these level gates for each character that needs them to be at the maximum experience level. Grinding everyone to level 50 was an absolute pain in my fucking left ass cheek. And thank God that it isn't necessary to level Goku that much. Once everyone is good and ready to go, you can proceed through each character's respective barriers to obtain their very own statues. You get Goku's statue by simply defeating Cell at the end, so no need to get him level 50. But once you have everyone else's statue, you unlock Mr. Satan as a playable character. What in the fuck? For all your hard work, you get an absolute joke character. This guy's weak as puppy piss, and to make matters worse, you need to grind him up to max level in order to unlock this shitty alternate ending. I said fuck that shit and was content with being salty over having wasted my time. With that, I beg you to not even bother getting everyone to max level unless you just really want to, because there's zero fucking payoff. Going back to the main quest line, a lot of the boss fights did a really good job of capturing the feel of Dragon Ball Z, with my favorite being Piccolo's fight against Android 17. Leading into these fights, we could see a lot of iconic lines spoken by characters from the show, and god damn does that pump me up. Vegeta asking 19 if it feels fear.
Does a machine like yourself ever experience fear?
Cell taunting Gohan after killing Android 16.
Yet another fighter you could have saved.
And hell, this one isn't even from a boss fight, but also when Trunks spazzed out at Dr. Zero's lab.
If they set that android free, it will be the end of all of us! No!
We even had most of the show's music accompanying these scenes, essentially making them smaller versions of the show. My god, the music is fantastic. From original pieces to Game Boy Advance versions of the Bruce Faulconer tracks, I found myself pausing the game several times just to have a listen. The Tropical Islands theme stands out as my favorite along with the boss themes. Even when fighting some of the enemies, I would try to punch to the rhythm of the song. The themes for each level felt very fitting, despite some of them being original pieces not used in the show. And the music that would play during intense story segments really created an intense atmosphere, which mirrors that of the anime. The sound design also did a good job of making the game really feel like Dragon Ball, and is a massive improvement from the previous game. The Super Saiyan aura sound effects were true to source. The energy blast sounded somewhat organic, and the wind from the punches and the impacts of the punches themselves made kicking ass a lot more enjoyable. The game's visuals are also really impressive and set a standard for how a Game Boy Advance game of its size is supposed to look. A lot of the character models are borrowed from the previous games and are improved upon, but the rest are completely new and look accurate to their anime counterparts. Although I will say that Perfect Cell looks pretty funky. When everyone is in motion, there is a significant amount of detail, from standard walking animations to unique running animations. Not to mention that when running or attacking, the character's hair, or in Piccolo's case his cape, moves around. Each character even has their very own idle animations, which really adds to their personalities. Enemies and bosses also look pretty good, especially the dinosaurs and alligators. Even this wolf, or whatever you want to call it, looks pretty good. When speaking, character portraits are also significantly better this time around, and are all highly detailed and accurate. Goku's does kind of bother me a little bit though. The game's environments are varied and really colorful and well lit, surprisingly, with some even having these ambient weather effects like dust storms or rain. Others have pools of water or some waving grass that is nice to look at. Trees, rocks, walls, fucking everything's full of detail. Even the ground looks nice. Levels are also pretty large at times, to the point of having used the scouter that you obtain in the main quest to see a map. Certain areas like West City even include a bunch of different buildings and locations to go to, which most of these are pretty awesome to look at and full of detail for no reason at all aside from because it can. And several, albeit generic, NPCs to converse with, giving the game more life than just having enemies to beat the shit out of. Being vastly superior to its predecessor is one thing, but managing to be a really good game is another. Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku 2, in all of its glory, including every single shortcoming that it may have, can easily be considered the greatest Dragon Ball game in existence right now. With some pretty fun gameplay, awesome music, and visuals superior to most games at the time, It even argues its case as one of the best games on the Game Boy Advance in general. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, casual or hardcore, chances are that you've already played this. But if you haven't, or if you aren't even into Dragon Ball, you gotta give Legacy of Goku 2 a go. Even if it can become grindy as hell, this game is an awesome thing to experience. If you're a collector of Game Boy Advance games, it doesn't get much better than this. Thank you all for watching. If you'd be so kind, leave a like or a comment telling me what you thought on the video or how much ass it sucked and how I can improve. Also, be sure to join my Discord, link is down below. Again, thank you for all the continued support and everything that you do for me, and as always, until next time.